All right, my friend. Hello once again. Welcome back to day 35 here in our 40-day walk through Abraham's life of faith. We're here now to enjoy some further insights from what we're seeing today. Genesis 24. Great story today, right? The Bible just tells incredible stories. It's so good at it. I never get tired of seeing how the Bible is able to create an entire world with the most economical use of words. I wish I had that skill. Well, today, we are seeing Abraham. He's older now. We've jumped ahead in his life story. And this is what the Bible does, right? You got a big sweeping timeline, and it will often skip ahead and get us right into key moments where it slows down. And we are slowing down for a key moment today. It's the moment when Abraham starts to make direct moves to pass on his life and legacy to the next generation. And so it's got me thinking about looking more into those efforts and to think about the three deadly words that kill our own legacy. We try to bring it all home. First thing, you got your highlights. There's mine. Got our reflection questions here, giving us a chance to reflect and respond. It's worth taking a look at these real quick. They're good ones. Here in Abraham's sunset years, looking at the reading guide, we do see Abraham's plans for Isaac's future start to emerge. What do you see are the non-negotiable pillars of Abraham's plans? And today's story featured a couple of those non-negotiables in pretty direct ways. And it came in the form of a couple of negative statements from Abraham in what we read today. I don't know if you saw that. First one is right here. His plan for Isaac's future includes not allowing his son to marry one of these local Canaanite women. He wants Isaac to be sure that he's not pulled astray by the local culture. And that's not because those are bad people necessarily. It's just because those are people who do not love and worship Yahweh. And that's a cornerstone for Abraham as he looks at Isaac's future. He's like, Isaac needs nothing in his life that's going to drag him away from that path. In fact, he's going to need everything in his life to support that, including his partner. All right. And so Abraham's willing to go to great lengths to see this happen. That's one pillar for Abraham. Another pillar is the question here where the servant asks, hey, well, what happens if I find a great young woman for Isaac, but she's not willing to travel so far from home? Should I take Isaac there to live among your relatives in the land you came from? And Abraham's response could not be any more emphatic. He's like, no, 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 no. And I made a mess there. He's like, be careful. This is essential. Never to take my son there. Because the Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and my native land, solemnly promised to give this land to my descendants. God removed Abraham from that family environment and sent him on a path to Canaan and has promised this land of Canaan as to Abraham's descendants forever. And this is key for Abraham. And he's like, no, 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 never let Isaac leave. Never take him away. Now, Isaac's going to make his own choices, but never take Isaac away. So God's promises to Abraham, he is determined to see everything he can, whatever's in his control, his power, his ability, to make sure that those promises are known, they're valued, and they're supported as Isaac becomes the new patriarch for the family, as Abraham places his legacy in Isaac's hands. And when he's thinking about legacy, he's thinking about more than just the family business and the financials. He's thinking about his own, his faith, his way of life. that includes God's promise to give Abraham and his descendants great success, as numerous as the stars in the sky, right? And then to give them a land. And Abraham's like, if that must be protected at all costs. Those are the non-negotiables for Abraham and his idea of passing on his legacy. What God's given his family to do, how God has promised to bless his family, that needs to be supported, protected at all costs, right? Now, that turns a question here to us today, right? As we look for some insights. Well, think about your own legacy. What does the next generation need to succeed? How can you help? This right here, this is key. This is Abraham showing us some amazing maturity. He knows as his life is reaching that fourth quarter stage. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. He understands that he's not going to be around forever, but God's promises, God's plans for his family, those are going to endure. And so Abraham starts to think less about himself. He kind of starts to step out of the spotlight here, and he makes the story about Isaac and about the future that God and Isaac will walk out together. That's so mature, and honestly, another great example of Abraham and his faith here. This mindset that he matters less as a person, as an individual, than God's direction, God's guidance, and God's actions through the generation that's coming ahead. Essential. That is so beautiful and honestly so rare. But it's if you want to leave an actual legacy behind, this is an essential mindset. Which brings me up at the top. I said I would share 3 deadly words that kill your legacy. Mine too. You know what those words are? 3 words. What about me? Those 3 little words, I have seen it. Doom families, doom cities, doom churches, doom cultures. When the generation that has the resources, the influence, the power, starts to all think, what about me? It's a signal of disaster. It's absolute disaster. It turns families into this inward focused circular kind of cesspool where no one's thinking about, hey, who's coming next? What will the generation be like, beyond us? And that's this thinking, what about me? It doesn't start, when you hit those sunset years. It starts much earlier. It starts with, how we're raising our kids, right? That's the stage of life I'm in, right? If I'm always thinking, what about me, right? And my kids are somehow accessories to my lifestyle, and they have to bend their will to mine all the time, and I do what I want, and they're stuck with it. That mindset, rather than a mindset of like, I have a faith, I have a lifestyle, I have that's a way of life that's my legacy. I need to pass that on to them. I want them to think like I think about the things that matter most, not because I've invented them, but because God's done so much work in me to help me see life a little tiny bit more like Jesus would see it if he were me. And I need to pass that on. And it's not in some kind of a document or a sit down meeting. It's in conversations that circle, right, for years. But then there comes that time where, I'm going to be at the stage of life where I need to diminish in their lives, and they have to take the spotlight. Uh, my family's legacy will be in their hands. You know what I'm saying? And if I'm at that point in my life and I'm like, what about me? You guys are forgetting me and what I want. Disaster. Right at the point where we're ready to launch and send our faith and our way of life to the next generation, the next decades, the next centuries. And then I turn all that momentum back on myself. It's like my kids are like rockets trying to launch from the launch pad, and they have to get enough thrust to clear the Earth's gravitational pull so they can head to the moon, let's say. And then I'm just pulling them down. What about me? Right? And they end up in orbit around me instead of on the trajectory out to the great unknown, to the future God has for them. You know what I'm saying? Now you take that same mindset, you start applying that to cities, to political ideas, to churches. Oh man, there's a huge one. Churches die. I have watched it before my very eyes. Churches start to die when the gravitational pull of what the members want and the people with the money and the resources and the influence, they go, we're going to make this like we want. That's the church of our dreams. And they pull everything in. And the next spiritual generation is left to either orbit the dying star of that church or neglect it altogether because preferences have prevented the next generation from joining them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like the dumb stuff, right? Music and the building style and what we call things, and what about me is deadly. Okay, and then if you expand that out to a cultural level, good luck. Your faith protects you from that mindset if you will let it. Protects me from that mindset if I will let it. Abraham's done that. Back to Abraham. There's no hint of that thinking from Abraham here. There's no, what about me? Right? While some people hit those final years of life and they want honor, they want attention, they want to make sure that their name's on buildings and they get remembered and people respect them. Abraham doesn't do any of that. He's turning his focus to the future beyond him. That's amazing. Abraham cares about the next generation, and he sees that it is part of his legacy, right? He sees that his life work isn't finished until he passes on his way of life and his future hope and his perspective and his relationship with God to his son. And so he works here today to set up Isaac for the win. And that win is an alignment with God's clear direction for Isaac. So he avoids the things that, we as parents can drop into, the behavior that's not good for our legacy. He doesn't shower Isaac with gifts and pamper him. He also doesn't beat Isaac up and browbeat him or avoid the succession plan and force Isaac to live under his shadow until he dies and everything's a puzzle that Isaac's got to figure out. And instead, Abraham uses his life experiences. He incorporates his faith and the resources he has to send his faith ahead through Isaac. Together, they're working on a legacy, and that's just a powerful mindset, all right? So, brings us back to you and me here for a minute. Let's think about it. What about you, all right? What's your mindset, right? Think about your legacy. What does the next generation need to succeed? Here's the thing, man, there's always a next generation, right? There's biological. That's one version of a generation who's related to me, passing that on. There's positional, there's spiritual, right? These are just a couple. There are probably others. I'm just kind of riffing here off the top of my head. You got biological, the relatives. I have two sons. That's the next generation. There's also positional. right? And maybe you're, where you work, you got a business you started. In my world, like I'm a pastor. I'm a spiritual guide and coach for people. Well, guess what? It's dawning on me that, you know what? I feel like I'm a work in progress, but there are others who are the decade behind me, or at another place behind me in their growth as as teachers, as leaders, as pastors, shepherds. So I can't camp on my little spot too long. I got to look around and go, who can I share this with, and set them up for the win, even if I don't feel like I got it all figured out yet, right? I got to be like, hey, who wants in? Let me help, right? Not like a top down thing, but just I've done a lot of things wrong, but done a couple things right. How can I help you? It's positional. Then there's the next generation coming, right? And then there's spiritual, and we all have this. There is, guys, our faith, from a human standpoint, we're a couple decades, always a couple decades away from dying out. Now, I know that's not going to happen because God has promises for the future that we trust. There's a way this story ends. All of our story and the story of human history ends. But from a very practical standpoint, if I'm not reproducing and nourishing the next spiritual generation, the next followers of Jesus, and helping them think about their lives and the problems they will need to solve in Jesus' name in our town and our world, then I'm bankrupting my legacy. If I'm out here going, what about me? I want church the way I want it. I like this music. I like this coffee, or I don't like Bible studies in that format, even though it's like, well, that works for the next generation. Guess what? We exist to serve them and pass it on. Just like as a parent, I exist to keep my kids alive, to keep them from becoming barbarians as they grow up, to nurture them so that they're able to take on the challenges of the next generation that I'll never see. You know what I'm saying? Same thing spiritually. All right. So as we wrap this up, here's the big question. All right. You and for me, looking at Abraham as a great example, how are you and me setting up what is in our care? Biological, positional, spiritual. How are we setting up what's in our care for a good future by noticing and investing in who's next? Because our legacy dies by 3 words. What about me? Let's not kill our future. Let's follow Abraham's example.